All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Do you know this song, Robin? Do you know the song by the Beatles, Happiness is a Warm Gun? Have you ever heard that song? It's on the White Album, and it's a song John Lennon wrote, and it's been so many years since I heard the story behind it, but what I seem to remember is he was somewhere, maybe at a recording studio, who knows, and somebody had a magazine, and the magazine had a smoking gun on the cover.
Gosh.
And it was probably a gun magazine, I would guess, or a hunting magazine or something like that, and he wrote the song. I don't want to say satire. What's a good word when somebody uses like the opposite to try to make a point?
Being facetious?
No, there's another word.
I don't know.
But anyway, oh my gosh, I know there's a word. But anyway, so John Lennon wrote the song "Happiness is a Warm Gun," and it makes a really important point. And this is not necessarily an anti-gun song as much as it is the attitude about the gun,
Yeah.
And so I don't even know if that's going to even align with our next guest, but
I think it is.
You think it is? The book is called Guns in the Hands of Artists, and Jonathan Ferrara is on the phone. He's the one who is responsible for the book, put it together, etc. Jonathan is an artist himself. He's the founder of the Guns in the Hands of Artists Foundation. He's the owner of the Jonathan Ferrara Art Gallery. He produced over 170 exhibitions in New Orleans, across the United States, and in Europe. He is on the phone right now. Good morning, Jonathan. Thank you for being on the air with us.
Thank you for having me on the program. Greatly appreciate it.
And if you're old enough to remember the Beatles, you probably have that song in your head right now, don't you?
I do.
So tell me about the book. It's a very interesting book, and the photographs depict so many different thoughts that the different artists you went to came up with to accomplish the goal of the book. So let me ask you to start there, if you don't mind. What is the goal of the book?
Well, the goal of the book is really, the book is an outgrowth of an exhibition that started almost 20 years ago called Guns in the Hands of Artists, where we worked with the police department in New Orleans, the mayor's office, and the city council to take guns off the streets. They were decommissioned, and then they were given to artists across the community. That first exhibition happened in the mid-1990s when New Orleans' murder rate was 400, one of the highest in the country.
Wow.
And it was an epidemic, a crisis here in New Orleans. And for 15 years after that, I read the news about Sandy Hook and Columbine, not to mention what happens on the streets of America every day. And I thought to myself, what can I do in my world to add to this conversation? And revisiting this project was exactly that. So we work with the same folks, again, the police department, the mayor's office, got 186 guns, 160 handguns, long-barreled shotguns. They were taken off the streets, they were decommissioned, and I gave those to artists across the country, men, women, black, white, all across the country, because this issue affects all of us. And they were challenged to use these decommissioned guns to make artworks that address the issue of guns and gun violence in America. Usually, I like to say, using the thing to talk about the thing. And what the real aim of this is to take the conversation out of the highly politicized and polarized realm and bring it into the realm of art as a means for dialogue, art as a way to foster a conversation, using the emotional power that art can generate to hopefully bring about some common ground, common understanding, so that we can make some positive change, whether it be incremental or even small, to making America a safer place and reduce gun violence through public sentiment, really.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robin. There are some pretty heavy quotes in there. One is from a mother about her son, and he was shot.
Yeah. So the book has images of the artworks from the exhibition, and then what I did was pair it with essays by thought leaders on this issue from across the country. So you have people like Walter Isaacson, who's written the introduction, Senator Tim Kaine, Joe Nocera from the New York Times, Richard Ford, the Pulitzer Prize winner, Gabby Giffords, the Congresswoman, and the piece that you mentioned is written by Lucia Macbeth, who's from Jacksonville, Florida, and her son Jordan Davis was killed in Jacksonville, and it's a very powerful, heartfelt piece about a mother who lost her child, and really is asking the question, why does this happen in America? Why do so many mothers grieve in America? And the book is it's a tough read, but it's a beautiful book, and it's something that I think is a very important topic in today's America, because this really affects all of us.
You know, there are a lot of images in the book that do combine things you associate with children with guns. Blocks, for example, just blocks of that are put together. Or images of children. It is the imagery, I think, that I guess does that for me. I'm looking at the one right now from Luis Cruz Azaceta. It's got a measuring tape, I guess you call it. But
yeah, exactly.
And the sight, I guess you would say, on the gun is actually a dice. So you call it a dice, right, with a heart on it.
Yes.
Yep.
A die.
Okay, a die. Sorry.
And that and yeah. And that piece really is, you know, there are some pieces. There are pieces that involve, I mean, children. The 35 different artists came at it from 35 different perspectives, because it is a multi-layered problem that faces our country. And the issue of children and guns, or we always read these stories where little Johnny pulled out a gun that they found in their parents' closet and shot their sister, or something like that. And so some of the artists are speaking to the safety around children with regard to weapons. So they're all addressing these different things. But you did mention that it's the power of the image to provoke a thought in your mind. And that's what this book and these artists and these essayists are doing. They're using art as a mirror to hold up to society and say, what's going on with guns in America? What's the issue? What's this issue that's tearing us apart, and how can we somehow move forward through common sense understanding of that? And because I think we all agree we want to make America a safer place.
Sure.
The question of how do we get there?
Yeah, I came up with a definition of what art is years ago, and my definition is this: art is anything sensual. In other words, things you can see, hear, feel, anything sensual that you can sense that evokes a reaction. And
exactly.
And with my definition, it explains art that isn't necessarily pretty, that isn't necessarily going to give you good feelings, like a Thomas Kinkade painting, for example. And so these images do meet my definition. They are sensual. You see them, obviously, and you feel them, not textually.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you feel them inside, internally. And it is like Happiness is a Warm Gun. It is like that song. Because I think that's what he was saying in the song, is exactly what these pictures are evoking.
And that's the important part of this is, you know, Walter Isaacson writes in his introduction, art has always had the power to change society and show us the way to a better place. And whether we're talking about art or literature or music, think about in 1904 when Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle about the meatpacking industry in Chicago. 20 years later, that led to the founding of the FDA. And, you know, Picasso's Guernica about the Spanish Civil War, and the image from that piece is emblazoned in people's minds. And then the protest songs of the 1960s. What do we remember from the 1960s? We remember Bob Dylan's The Answer is, you know, is Blowing in the Wind. Those things, art has that power to create that reaction and access something inside of people that makes them think. And once you make them think, that's when it can lead to change, that can lead to common understanding. It can continue the conversation, because right now it seems as if the conversation is not happening.
Well,
and we want to continue that to happen.
Exactly. And the conversation, here's when the conversation happens. It happens the day after a shooting. That's when it happens.
Exactly.
2 days after the shooting, maybe. A week after the shooting, we're talking about something else. So I think keeping the conversation going is important. And one real quick question, are any of the artists who contributed, are any of them gun enthusiasts? In other words, they see the point that you're trying to make, but at the same time, they're not they're not anti-gun.
No, I think that first and foremost, this is not an anti-gun movement. It's not an anti-gun effort. This is about creating the forum for the exchange of ideas that hopefully leads to, the common ground, common understanding. 40% of the artists in the exhibition own guns. And at the same time, 40% of the artists in the exhibition have been victims of gun violence. Wow. So it's really coming at it from different perspectives. And even the people, the essayists that have written, Gabby Giffords is a gun owner. There are numerous, Richard Ford is a gun owner. So it's not just saying, because if you don't have a full discussion on both sides, you're not going to be able to make sense and make progress. And I think that's what we're talking about, is multiple perspectives, but from gun owners as well.
I have a copy of the book here. It's called Guns in the Hands of Artists. It's not really a coffee table book, but it's large, and it could be a coffee table book. Jonathan Ferrara is the author and the creator of the book and the project. And if you would like the copy that was sent to me, you're welcome to it. The rest of us will have to go buy it. Can you direct us to a website?
Sure, you could buy it at your local Barnes & Noble or on Amazon.com, are the two main places, and independent bookstores across the country.
Okay, and your website is your name, JonathanFerraraGallery.com, correct?
That is it. Okay. Yes, indeed.
Well, Jonathan, thank you for what you're doing. I think that's bigger than the thank you for being on the show, but thank you for that too.
Thank you so much for having me.
I like what you're doing. All right, we will take a little break. We'll be right back. Veterans are the foundation upon which our freedom is built. Listen to The Source, WOCA, each Thursday at 9 a.m. to Veterans News with Hank Whittier from Vets Helping Vets. You'll hear tributes, information on veterans issues, and stories that will make you laugh, cry, and feel proud. Veterans News always focuses on the military, past and present, and on our first responders. Veterans News is brought to you each week by Bob Wine's Camellia Gardens and Nursery, keeping you blooming since 1952.
The weather was brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. On this Tuesday, intervals of clouds and sunshine. A pretty nice day overall. There can be a shower along the coast. High 76 at the coast, 81 inland, and partly cloudy.